A disaster in Dundee for Celtic. It was tense, it was gripping, but Hearts stay top of the league. And is it all over for Livingston? Hello, I'm Adam Binnie and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Monday the 23rd of March as Celtic's title hopes suffer a major blow.
Brings back to Adjie, deflected, goal! 2-0 United! Adjie from the edge of the area and Celtic's title hopes are under so much duress now.
Celtic stumble at Tannadice as Rangers keep up the pressure at the top of the table. Hearts though, they remain in pole position after beating Dundee.
In comes the Hearts free kick now to the back post, up goes the head, goal Hearts! Oisin McEntee breaks the deadlock for Hearts! It's the moment the Hearts fans came for!
7 games left in the most gripping race for the title in decades, and have Kilmarnock put the final nail in the Livingston coffin.
Yeah, a goal against the run of play, and it's a goal for Kilmarnock, and delighted for him. The young man Finlay Curtis got his call up for Scotland and he's got his goal, so it's at the moment Kilmarnock 2, Livingston 0.
We'll guide you through the weekend's Scottish Premiership drama.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
And I'm delighted to say we have got two regulars of the podcast on today, Kevin Thomson and Scott Allan, joining us to go through all of the action from the weekend. Guys, will we get out to any games at the weekend? Scott, we'll start with you.
None in the Premiership. Was obviously at my own game yesterday, Wee School Bride at home to Stirling Albion. 3 points and then a tricky game away to Spartans next weekend.
That's all heating up at the top of League 2 as well. Kevin, yourself, I believe were you at Ibrox yesterday?
I've seen you, mate, didn't I?
Indeed, yeah. We're saving the big reveal for the podcast. Don't give it away.
You can't get on the gantry without stopping to speak to 100 people, can you?
I know, that's the way it is. What do you make of Rangers' performance, Kevin?
I thought they were. I thought they started really well, Adam, and then we. I felt like there was a wee bit of animosity growing when they never got the early goal. But I thought over the piece they were. It was probably one of the best I've seen Rangers, the most comfortable. I have to say Aberdeen were absolutely powder puff. I thought when the subs come on at half time for Aberdeen, Olasanya, Jensen on the right hand side, Keskinen, I actually thought they looked a wee bit of a threat. They obviously got their good goal, but a comfortable afternoon for Rangers. And I think the most pleasing thing I think for Danny Rowe and the Rangers fans is I still think there's another level to go. And if they can hit that, obviously, with only 7 games to go, then it could be a really interesting finish to the season for them.
Yeah, certainly. We'll get on to the big game in Ibrox from Saturday evening in a bit more detail later in the podcast, but we've got to start with the big game on Sunday. Celtic dropping all 3 points indeed to Dundee United, beaten 2-0 at Tannadice. Scott, Celtic really incredibly lacklustre, lacked quality in the final third, and you've got to say Dundee United deserved it, didn't they?
Yeah, I think once you turn up as a player and you see the surface, it's obviously been well spoken about. You straight away, and Tom will tell you, know exactly what type of game it's going to be, especially in that midfield area. Dundee United are going to be combative, they're going to make you defend, try and get you running back to your goals. But then when you do have your moments and you're a Celtic player, you then have to put your foot in the ball and show a bit of composure. As much as the pitch is bad, there was times where they could have picked the right pass, and everybody's looking at the pitch to blame that. For me, I just thought they were bereft of any quality, and when they did get down the sides, there was no real belief that they were going to go by someone and create something. And then Nacho was a strange one for me as well, just to come in, especially in a game like that when we haven't seen much of him of late. But I think that just sums up where Celtic are in terms of their number 9 this season. But Dundee United well worthy the win. Thought Ferry was excellent. Ross Graham, obviously after the last couple of minutes of the game, being a Dundee United fan as well, come through the academy, I thought he responded really well today. As much as Celtic didn't put them under a great deal of pressure, Dundee United, when they had their moments, took them and deserved all 3 points.
Kevin, I think a lot of people have been mentioning the pitch, and it was clear to see that it wasn't in its best condition. But that surely can't be an excuse for the Celtic players. They've had a few weeks now to watch Dundee United. I think back to games against St Mirren and Aberdeen up at Tannadice, and the pitch has been in poor nick for a long, long time. You surely think the Celtic players can expect that and adjust their game plan accordingly, no?
Well, the one thing I would say for sure, Adam, is that the Celtic players, Martin O'Neill and the staff, will certainly not make any excuses for the pitch. Or I would like to think they wouldn't. Because when you're a Celtic player, a Rangers player, you have to deal with people not liking you, and every game is a cup final. Everybody wants to beat you. Everybody wants to see you fail. I'm a bit like Scotty, really. I was surprised when I looked at the team lines. Obviously, Callum McGregor coming back in, everybody thought, and rightly so, it was such a big miss. And when you think of obviously the boys that have missed recent weeks, you all only thought that Celtic were going to get stronger. But to come unstuck at the first game, only Martin O'Neill's second defeat domestically since he's obviously been back for the second time. I genuinely thought Celtic would go on and win the title. I genuinely thought that. I thought the momentum was with them. I thought looking at the fixtures, having Hearts and Rangers still to go to Celtic Park, and I suppose the excitement for everybody is now it's took another twist. And I know the Jambos have obviously got their noses in front, but being at Ibrox yesterday, I would say the Rangers are now the favourites, to be honest.
Scott, would you say, I don't know how to put this, would you say you're surprised by some of the selections, I guess, that at Celtic? I know you touched on Iheanacho starting through the middle, but then also we saw in the second half Rio Hatate moving to right back. It all just looked a little bit disjointed. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, but I think once the game starts getting away from you, you start to try and put guys into positions to try and get a bit of calm on the ball. I think the reason maybe puts Hatate in there is he gets a wee bit more time on the ball because of the pitch, and he can maybe find day killer passes because he's one of the main players in Celtic's team who can unlock defences. But at the same time, if it's going to come down to a battle and second balls and all these things, Dundee United are going to, especially on a pitch like that, Dundee United are going to win that battle because that's the sort of profile of player they have within their team. That's when Celtic then have to show things that Tomo spoke about. The responsibility comes of wearing that jersey is, can you be better than that? Can't you take that side away from it? As much as the pitch was poor, you can still pack. We've all played in bad football pitches. If the ball's taking a skip, you just lift your foot a bit higher and the ball then sets for you and you can work from there. But I thought at times they looked like a team full of strangers. There's no connections within the team. And like I said, I think then when Tanecki and that get the ball in wide areas, it then becomes an expectance for a moment of brilliance. And I think Celtic, I know it's like later on in the season, they have to be better than that. As much as they had control at times, they never looked like a real threat. And I did think, as much as they had a good result last week, I felt that these two games in Dundee, back to back, would be tricky for Celtic, and the first one's already proved to be that, and Dens Park will be no different.
Kevin, of course, a great result for Dundee United, thoroughly deserved the victory in the end. You had a chance to watch them last week in the derby at Dens. I guess it was really no surprise that Dundee United were actually able to put together a good performance, because you saw that at Dens last week. But how much of a lift do you think this will give them going forward, that they were able to actually sustain it and hold on and not give away the late goals, which really has been their Achilles heel this season?
Yeah, listen, Jim Goodwin will be delighted, Dads. I watched them up at Dens. I thought they were terrific. Well worthy, winning the derby, albeit, felt a bit late on in the game. And it's a flip of that, because you could say the resilience and the mentality that Dundee showed to keep on going right to the final whistle, which Stephen Presley alluded to after the game, and then the sucker punch for Jim for being so dominant, and his team probably really making them proud, and the Dundee United fans proud. But to fall at that final hurdle was probably a real kick in the teeth. To then bounce back the way they have against Celtic, who, listen, I've got the utmost respect for Celtic. They're a top team with a top manager, top staff, with top players. But when you've got the momentum that Dundee United probably didn't have, to then bounce back and get a result against such a good team at Celtic, that Jim will be absolutely delighted. And I was one that thought they would be looking over their shoulder. I think they're going to be safe now.
Yeah, well, I think probably in terms of relegation, they probably will be safe. But Scott, there's still this, outside opportunity, outside chance that they could actually finish in the top six. There's 2 games to go. The gap's 6 points just now. They've got a goal difference to try and overturn of 7. But Falkirk's next 2 fixtures are away to Motherwell and then at home to Rangers. Do you think there's any chance for Dundee United? Do you think they could pull off this seemingly improbable comeback and try and finish in that top 6?
Oh, I think they're away to Ibrox, aren't they next? And then I think
indeed,
they're a home game against Livingston. Listen, I think even yesterday with it, when you looked at Falkirk, there was chances. Falkirk would have felt a bit frustrated that they didn't get something out of the game. They did create chances and then to lose 2 really poor goals from set pieces. I just feel it's a blip for Falkirk. I do feel within the fixtures you speak about, I think Falkirk are capable of going and getting points and securing that top 6. And for me, I think they've been well deserving of that. But listen, as you say, a lot can happen in football. We're seeing it week to week in this league. But I still look at Dundee, a really tough game away at Ibrox, and then Livingston, who are all but gone but still fighting for their lives at this moment in time.
Yeah, and Kevin, of course, we've got to touch on the brilliant result for Hearts on Saturday as well. 1-0 victory over Dundee. another set piece, and really that's been, I guess, the story of the season. They've been the king of set pieces, haven't they?
Yeah, and they deserve all the credit. I've always given them a lot of credit. They've had a wonderful season. They've been there for the majority of it. They've been there to be shot at. They continue to find ways of winning games of football, which is a great habit to have. I think that's 4-1-0 winning results at Tynecastle in the last 4 home games, which is normally the sign of a real good team, because you can't always play well. It can't always be perfect. And obviously as the pressure mounts, the animosity within the stands, the pressure of obviously having some of their big stars out injured. I know Cammy Devlin and Lauren Shanklin Cammy Devlin obviously started at the weekend there, so Shanks is obviously not too far behind. But I think when you think of the type of players missing for a team like Hearts, they've done incredibly well to stay right in the fight right up until the end, and I certainly wouldn't bet against them, that's for sure.
And Scott, when you look at responding to setbacks, this has been a real theme throughout the season for Hearts. The latest one, of course, losing to Kilmarnock last weekend and following that up with a win today. I guess the next challenge that Hearts have got to face is yet another injury blow, or potential injury blow, with Craig Halkett pulling up even before the warm-up with a back spasm. Frank Kent obviously picks up the second yellow card as well, so they could be really, really light in terms of defensive options next week. But do you think they've got enough in their squad to deal with that? And how big a boost do you think it'll be, obviously having Shanklin and Devlin back after the international break fully as well?
I think, first of all, I think Halkett's a huge miss. He is the leader of that Hearts back line. Getting his head on everything. We've seen a really consistent performance from him throughout the season. He is the one that Derek McInnes goes to as he's real leader of that squad, especially organising from the back. But to caveat that, I think Shanklin and Devlin coming back is a huge bonus for the squad. That will naturally give them a lift, because they've been two of their best performers. As you look at that spine, it's been Halkett, Devlin and Shanklin. They've been three of their best performers, with Kizaridis obviously chipping in here and there. But I think them two getting back into the squads will give them a huge lift. And it's an opportunity for someone to come in. There's no better time. We talk about getting opportunities as players. Coming into a team who's really fighting to go and win a league for the first time in however many years that we've spoke about, what an opportunity to come in and really put in some solid performances. I think obviously Kent going off, he'll miss a game, and it was an opportunity for someone else to come to try and be part of something that could be very special coming into the season for Hearts.
Yeah, well, Hearts finished the weekend at the top of the table, the same place they started it, but they've got an extra point advantage from which they started. Of course, the Celtic losing to Dundee United. Kevin, Rangers hot on their heels in second place now after a victory over Aberdeen on Saturday evening. Earlier in the podcast, you mentioned you fancy Rangers as favourites now to go on and win it. What makes you say that? What do you see in this Rangers side that makes you think that's title winners there?
I just think it changes week to week, guys, and that's why we love it so much. Last week you thought with Hearts having the advantage of 6 points, 5 over Celtic, and then getting beat against Killie, both Celtic and Rangers winning. Then you get to this week, and I'm just going off what I've seen at Ibrox. They look like a team that had a bit of swagger. The back line looked really aggressive. Tav obviously back in. I thought Juega, Fernandez, Romans, I thought was absolutely terrific on the day. And then you look at what he was bringing on off the bench. Adam, Gassama's had a wee bit of stick off the fans in recent times. I was at Livingston when he actually got booed off by the away fans. So, but then he comes on and lights the place up. So I just think they've got that wee bit. Antman come on. I thought he looked quite sharp as well. So Danny Rowe must be having what's the right terminology? A good togetherness within the squad, because sometimes when you get left out at a big club and things are not going particularly well for you, you can sometimes sulk a wee bit. You can come on, you didn't quite make the impact that you probably should be making. And I just think because Hearts have been there for so long, I just think they now carry that old firm tag that everybody wants to beat them, and it's going to be really interesting these last 7 games to go. Whichever the top 6 split happens, we obviously know which teams are going to be home, which teams are going to be away, but it's how the fixtures are going to fall is going to be imperative to where the title ends. But I just think Rangers, I'm happy to be wrong, Adam, I just think Rangers might edge it. There
were some good individual performances, not least Mikey Moore as well. Another goal for him and a player of the match performance. Now, Kevin, he hinted in his post-match press conference, I think the quotes hit the media today, that he would perhaps be open to staying another year on loan at Rangers. How much of a boost do you think that would give the club for next season? I know we're still a bit away from that and there's lots of things to take into consideration, but do you think that's one Rangers should really try and prioritise and get done again?
Well, he's going to be expensive, Adam, unfortunately, because when you bring these young lads up on loan and you give them a brilliant platform at a brilliant club, and they go and flourish, which is great for their obviously for Spurs' perspective. But he reminds me slightly different for the person that's sitting in the Zoom call today. He's got that balance, he's got that swagger, he's got an eye for a pass, he can change direction in tight areas. He's got real quality, so he's he doesn't drift too far for a young Scotty Allan when he was at his peak, really.
I thought you were going to say Adzell and he's playing futsal.
Not at all.
He's just got that X factor, Adam, which is great, because it's. I always think people that make a difference and the risk takers are the ones that catch the eye. Listen, a team needs all different types, but when you watch him in full flow, his imagination, his personality, there's no doubt that there's been times where he's been questioned because his inconsistency. I thought he had a real difficult start. People wanted to send him back down the road. I think when he first signed, he was only 17. Obviously under Russell Martin, he was really finding it difficult, but he's flourished, he's grew. I like listening to him after the game, pre-match, post-match, whenever he does interviews. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and he's going to be a huge asset for Rangers moving forward. If they can get him over the line in the summer, if the Americans are willing to stump up the money, then I'm pretty sure he would be welcomed by everybody.
Mikey Moore and a prime Scotty Allan as your 2 10s and a 4 222. That sounds absolutely delightful.
Scotty Allan now.
we need someone doing the running.
Scott, of course, I guess on the other side of that, you've got Aberdeen, who lost the game 4-1, now just 3 points off that relegation playoff spot. Should the Aberdeen fans be worried about relegation? I know Stephen Robinson admitted at post-match that they are in a relegation fight, but I guess, are you worried for Aberdeen now?
I still look at, listen, they're in the mix with Kilmarnock and St Mirren. There's no getting away from that. I do feel if it was to come over between two legs, between them and one of the Championship sides that finishes second, I think Aberdeen will have too much, but there's no getting away from it. The signings, the style, everything about Aberdeen this season's just been so strange to watch. Tomo touches on the changes made at half time. What they offered was pace, but when you look at it in terms of real quality, they just don't have it in the final third for me. And I think Geiger's maybe one of the better ones since January. Obviously takes his goal well yesterday. He might look like a better player, and some of the other players might look better with better players around them. But there's no getting away from it. I think that was their first goal, and 5 or 6 away games, they just don't carry enough threat for me, and they concede goals. That'll be Stephen Robinson's biggest concern. He would have known what he's walking into, but maybe not as bad as it probably is. That'll be a concern of his. I do think Kilmarnock are the team with the momentum between the three of them at this moment in time. Obviously they're playing some good football, they're scoring goals, they've got guys obviously getting call-ups for Scotland for the national team. But Aberdeen are in amongst it, there's no getting away from it. But over the course of a playoff with a Championship side, I think they would have, I genuinely think they would have too much. So although we're saying they're in a relegation battle, I think if the push came to the shove, they would have too much for any of the Championship teams.
Kevin, thoughts on Aberdeen? Do you back Stephen Robinson to turn it around and keep them in the division?
Well, I was just quickly checking the fixtures there. Obviously, we're at national break coming up, Adam. They're away to St Mirren, aren't they, in their next game? I don't know if it paused there and you already mentioned that, but it's somebody had told me that at Ibrox. I was just confirming that was the case. So it would be ironic and it would be typically Scottish football if Stephen Robinson leaves St Mirren and Aberdeen end up getting relegated, wouldn't it? It would just sum it up. But I'm a wee bit the same as Scott. I think they've got too much. But if you'd asked me that after 45 minutes at Ibrox yesterday, I was thinking that they were doomed. I was looking at the group. I was looking at how they were playing. I was looking at their body language. Normally when you think of a team that isn't going to end up in that battle at the end of the season, they've normally got a wee bit about them. Every team goes through tough times. Every team struggles, especially when you know the top teams. There's always that month where you maybe only pick up a win, and then that nervousness gets within the squad. The pass becomes harder. You take less risks. All the wee 1% become really important. And when I watched that Aberdeen team for 45 minutes, I thought, wow, I never realised how poor they were. Yeah, for 10-15 minutes when Olasanya come on, Keskinen come on, Jensen come on, I actually thought, they actually look all right. Obviously, in the end, Rangers ended up putting them at the sword and were quite emphatic in the end. But if Aberdeen are going to have any hope, Adam, the 10-15 minutes that I've seen, they're going to need to string that together for the next 6 or 7 games, or else they're they're in a real bit of bother. Like.
Yeah, and if you look at the other teams, it's Aberdeen, Kilmarnock, St Mirren probably going to be battling it out for that 11th place relegation playoff. But is it fair to say now, Kevin, after Livingston losing at the weekend, that they're doomed, they're gone? Do you see any hope for Livy?
No, and it's I feel for Marv really, because it's obviously a difficult position that he's been put in. I know Davey's obviously still really involved, and rightly so. I've got huge respect for Davy Martindale and the job that he's done at Livingston. And there's no doubt that actually when you watch Livingston, they've probably had a really frustrating season, because I've done quite a few games. I've done the game when they played against Hibs after they'd just been beat 4-0 off of Hibs at Easter Road. I've done the 2-2 game when Kearney scored the penalty late on. I was there when they were 2-0 up against Rangers, obviously down to 10 men, and you're thinking, this team's actually all right, they've got a bit about them. But unfortunately, they just seem to not be able to get over the line with that win. And I just think now with the gap that's been created with Kilmarnock and St Mirren obviously winning at the weekend, I think that I don't think it's obviously mathematically possible to say that they're relegated at the moment, Adam, but I think they're is the right word. I think they're doomed. Yeah,
Scott, but is it a great result for Kilmarnock, and in particular a brilliant performance from young Finlay Curtis? So a good performance to go along with a national team call up this week as well. How nice was that to see first the call up, but then to back it up too with a goal and a performance like that?
Yeah, well, these things usually happen when you're obviously full of confidence. I don't know how privy he was to knowing that he was going to get a call up, whether it was his performance last week when Steve Clarke was watching. Tom will tell you, as a player, if you get that sort of news, the belief really grows within you. Then you hear Danny Rowell speaking about you coming back in the summer and trying to have a real impact in the Rangers side. Only thing I disagreed with, I didn't think there was 5 or 6 players in front of him at Rangers. I think Danny Rowell said that in the presser on Friday. I do feel he was a player with these sort of attributes who could still come off the bench and impact for Rangers. But what I like about it, he's went out and got games. It's so important. And he's went out, got games, and he's performing. And it would have been, I think it's one of them when Finlay Curtis probably had Kilmarnock brought to him. It's one of them that were down at the bottom of the table. They weren't winning games. It's dead easy as a player to take the safe option, just stay round the Rangers squad. But he obviously has that belief that he wants to go out and get games and come back a better player. And it's turned out to be a fantastic decision for both him and Kilmarnock. Neil McCann obviously have a big impact in that. He obviously spoke about him playing different positions, but you're starting to see a player blossom here in Finlay Curtis for me. And to cap it off, obviously, with a call up to the national team would have been an amazing week for them. And in Kilmarnock, for me, they just look as if they're going in one direction, and that's up the way.
Obviously, people have had their say on his inclusion in the team, especially when there's been no Hearts or Motherwell players involved in the national team. Certainly this time around. But Scott, do you think he offers something a bit different, particularly with Ben Gannon Doak being injured, that direct winger, that goal threat, that pace from wide areas that Scotland may actually need to call on Finlay Curtis in these next couple of friendlies coming up this week? Yeah,
I think it's the one thing when you watch your national team, when you don't have Ben Gannon Doak, as we don't have someone who can really travel with the ball. Finlay Curtis does have he's a real athlete. He can travel with the ball. Yes, he's still developing and doesn't always have that final ball yet, but that can be worked on. So I don't think, I understand he's been chosen for the squad based on the things you speak about, pace and power, and that sometimes gets you ahead of the queue, especially in a team where we aren't blessed with a lot of pace, especially in the attacking areas in our national team. So I think it's one of them. Steve Clarke will bring him into the squad. We'll have a look at him as long as he gets minutes. I think then it becomes much more clearer to see if he's going to have a real impact in this team come the summer. But for me, you have to have pace in the areas, especially when at times as a national team will be forced back, and when you're then trying to get yourself up the pitch, the players with pace can be the difference. And for me, we don't have enough for them. So it makes sense. I understand there'll be a lot of other players throughout the you touch on Motherwell and Hearts who will be frustrated, but sometimes it just comes down to the profile of the player.
Well, it's a big win for Kilmarnock, obviously at the bottom of the table, but also for St Mirren as well, Kevin. Massive result away to Falkirk for caretaker manager Craig McLeish, and a good performance as well against Rangers last weekend. Do you think he's now maybe starting to turn a few heads in Paisley and the higher ups be thinking this guy could be a candidate for the job going forward? Yeah, listen, he'll certainly not be doing himself any harm. I know he's started to be involved in some of the younger Scotland teams as well. He's got a good reputation. I don't know him personally, Craig McLeish, but I listened to his pre-match stuff, his post-match stuff. I like listening to managers. Win, lose or draw, it's interesting to see how they come across. So
listen, obviously you see quite a lot of names linked with that job. Different names, whether it be an Eze, Charlie Adams has obviously been a name that's been linked. So, and no doubt there's been plenty of others. I know Neil Lennon was another one that was linked to it. So sometimes you've got a good coach, good manager that can take the club forward right under your nose. He's obviously been coaching for quite a while. No doubt he knows the players. He'll know Ralston. He's one that's doing himself no harm, Adam, and I just hope that sometimes these clubs look for some sort of sexy option, and sometimes the option's right under your nose. So he's certainly doing himself no harm. I certainly think they're still in that battle, they're still in the mix. But as you say, good positive performance against Rangers. And maybe because Stephen Robinson had so much success at St Mirren, it needs a clean break, it needs that fresh voice, a fresh idea. There's no doubt that Stephen Robinson had a specific style, a specific recruitment when it comes to what type of player he wanted to recruit. And Craig McLeish might be totally different. So it'll be interesting to see if they can turn the squad around. But I certainly think he's done himself no harm with the performances that he's put on today.
And a share of the spoils between Motherwell and Hibs, goalless draw in the end. Scott, do you think Hibs had to win that game to try and catch Motherwell and guarantee them some form of European football?
Yeah, I think they'll be kicking themselves at the home game against Livingston though the previous week. I think that would have been a massive opportunity to put that pressure on. Motherwell obviously went off the boil the last couple of weeks for one reason or another. We've been so consistent throughout the season, but always felt at times teams will try and make it as difficult as possible, and it then became... I think Tom said earlier about Hearts having that pressure. I actually felt like in the last maybe 2 months, like everybody's dying to beat Motherwell because of the football they play. So I think that definitely plays a part. And in the games they could have come off with a win and they came away with draws or whatever. But for Hibs, yeah, as I said, I think the 2 0-0 draws obviously back to back hasn't helped them looking to finish above Motherwell. And I just feel this season Motherwell have got more than Hibs. I think they have a consistent kind of style of playing first and foremost, and have produced better results over the course of the season. So as I said, if the Livingston result at home last week had went their way, then I felt Saturday would have been a real chance for Hibs to go and put some real pressure on Motherwell, but I just think that it'll be too much for them to claw back.
Kevin, it wasn't too long ago we were talking about Motherwell as being a potential fourth force in the race for the title, but it's 3 games without a win. How do you explain that? Is it teams figuring them out? Have they just been unlucky? What do you put it down to?
No, I was listening to Lee Miller on the way to Ibrox, obviously in the car. He was obviously giving the updates for the BBC, and he felt that Maswinishi was getting a wee bit frustrated. Obviously, I never watched the game. We've been at Ibrox, but I felt the way Lee described it was as if it was like it flattered to deceive a wee bit. Which you have their games. I think they've been absolutely terrific. Motherwell, I've loved watching them. The manager, the staff, the players. I've had all the praise that they thoroughly deserved. The unfortunate thing for us when being involved in the media and people looking for outside in is when they don't hit the heights that they've reached, you naturally think something's went wrong. Listen, Hibs are a good team. Dave likes 3-5-2. They're hard to beat. They're well organised. I think from a Hibs perspective, they probably lacked a bit of real quality in the final third, the real cutting edge, which has been a frustration for Hibs. Scotty touches on the Livingston game, which was probably a sucker punch for them, but I think the game the week before, obviously being in front against Dundee and getting pegged back late on, too many draws, and I think Dave's probably been a wee bit unlucky to get the criticism that he's had. The flip of that is Motherwell have been absolutely excellent, but Motherwell have still to go to Easter Road and Hibs are only 6 points behind them, so it's amazing how you have the narrative of how good Motherwell have been and then maybe not so much the Highbees. But I think they're 2 good teams, 2 real good managers, and I feel a wee bit for Dave, not just because he's my mate, but unfortunately when you have a good season last season, you build that expectation up. People expect you to do well in the cups. When Hearts are going so well, it's amazing that you sometimes carry the can for your own success.
No, lads, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. Big thanks to Scott Allan and to Kevin Thomson, and thank you, of course, to everyone who's joined us listening from home as well. Remember, we're here every day with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast, bright and early, so make sure, if you don't want to miss out, to subscribe on BBC Sounds and have those push notifications turned on in your phone. And once again, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you all again tomorrow. See you then.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.